and it's time for critical thinking. So what do you have for us, Doug?
Well, I want to talk about manipulation. You know, there are people out there that are trying to influence you, some of which are, not looking out for your best interests. One example was a study that was conducted on organ donation. And organ donation, they looked at it around the world, and they found that some countries had a lot of organ donors, and other countries had very few organ donors. And what they recognized was this wasn't a difference in population in the country. It wasn't like a moral issue or some sort of ethnic or local issue. It was simply that some countries asked you if you wanted to opt into the program, and other countries asked you if you wanted to opt out.
Interesting. Well, I know I'm an organ donator, but
well,
I don't know if many others are, so I think ours asked us to opt in.
That's right. So it asks us to opt. Yeah, that's right. So it says, do you want to be a part of this? And a lot of people go, nah.
They're not sure, so they say no.
They say no. But if it says, do you want to opt out of the donor program, you'll say, oh, no, I don't want to opt out. I like the program. So if you ask them to opt out, they won't. If you ask them to opt in, they won't either. So phrase the question correctly, and you'll get a lot more organ donations. And hopefully all the hospitals and the states know this.
Hopefully they're taking note and changing their
hopefully they do, because this has been around. A lot of people know this. So what should you do? Well, when somebody asks you a question like, do you want to be part of the organ donation program? Do you want to opt in or opt out? They are putting bias into the question. They're kind of leading you to the
answer they want.
That's exactly right. So what you should do is rephrase the question to see if what you really think about the issue without actually using their wording. So for example, instead of saying, do you want to opt in, just think to yourself, now what do I think about participating in an organ donor program? Does that sound good to me or not? And think about it for a while. And if it's a more complicated question, obviously you can do research and so on. But generally you'll get a feel for whether you want to be a part of it or not, and then read the question and answer it accordingly. It doesn't matter if it's opt in or opt out at that point, because you've already made up your mind before you really read the question. So there's lots of other questions that this pops up on all the time.
What if I were to say, you're voting on Prop 19 for it, right?
Yeah, that's not a... Prop 19 is the California pot initiative. It's to legalize marijuana here. So there's plenty of people running around saying, you're voting for Prop 19, right? You're voting for Prop 19, right? And
people just say yes, because they don't even know what it is at first.
Yeah, they don't want to get involved. And there's also plenty of people walking around saying, you're not going to vote for Prop 19, are you? You're not going to vote for Prop 19, are you? And you're like,
both are leading.
I already know how you think and what you want me to say. So you're not really asking me what I think. You're kind of telling me what to think. So, and this can be other questions too.
Well, here's one.
I don't like this question.
Do I look fat in these pants?
Now, see, that's a question. That's a question that
All guys know this.
that no guy can really answer. I mean, there's no good answer to this, right? So let's try to think through this. So if you say, yeah, you look fat in those pants, well, you can move. I mean, you might as well move. You're going into the doghouse. The question is the dog going to stay in there with you? so you're done. And if you say, oh, no, you don't, well, you better be like De Niro in Raging Bull with your acting lessons, because when you turn to her and go, oh, no, you look fine. Or even what's worse is don't even look and say, no, they're fine. And she goes,
oh, yeah, that's bad.
You didn't even look. You didn't even look. You don't care. Oh, yeah. So rephrase what she's asking you and think about it critically. So instead of saying, do I look fat in these pants? Forget the question. What's she really asking? What should I say to my wife when she is unsure about her appearance? Now, that's a different question.
You always look beautiful to me, honey.
Well, that's one way to do it. Now, if you said, do I look fat in these pants? I think probably what I would think of is something like, gee, honey, when I see you in those pants, what I think of is getting you out of them.
Hey, now.
So I turned it around, right? I mean, obviously she's not going to be mad at me for that. She's like, oh, he really does love me. Yeah. Or she can say, which
at least you get a good laugh out of it.
Well, or she could say, which is probably more typical, you're just a pig. right? So go away. So rephrase it, change it around, and you might be able to get out of that. So remember, think of this as a little test. So think of a question that's come up recently and then rephrase it and see if you can take the manipulation out of it and see if your answer changes. Because I think if you rephrase the question to what the really issue is, you can get a lot of that manipulation out of your questions and come up with a different answer.
And the takeaway is?
So the takeaway here is to critically think about questions of importance, rephrase the questions in a different way, reduce the amount of manipulation in them, and see if your answer changes.